Greetings, welcome to the SciFi Pubcast, the podcast that tries to be a pub and perhaps someday a pub that tries to be a podcast. And as always, we are looking for customers to visit our bar. So if you're passionate about something, you want to be on a podcast, you want to use your voice, well, let us know, because this bar is all about community. We're not doing this for money, we don't have Patreon, and we don't sell advertising, mostly because no one will listen to it anyways. So if you want to help us out, please consider leaving a 5-star review wherever you find the show and joining our Discord server. And subscribe to the SciFi Pubcast on YouTube. I'm Joel. I'm the owner of the SciFi Pubcast, so to speak, and I'm looking around, and we are going to have a very good show because I see my friend Carrie. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Joel.
I see my friend Derek.
Heyo.
Derek BB. And I'm hearing my friend Dr. Randal Graham. How you doing, Randal?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for having me again.
Yes. This is back-to-back episodes. This is amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're still under lockdown, so I oftentimes when you guys record, my wife and I are at a play. We go to the Grand Theatre here in London, Ontario, and its shows are often on Sunday afternoons. So I end up missing a lot of podcasts, but not so much these days.
Yes. So Randal Graham.
There are some silver linings to quarantine, I guess.
It's true.
Yes, Randal has written several novels. One is published, one's about to be published. The first one is Before Life, and the one that's going to be released shortly is Afterlife. And I just want to say that I like the fact that Randal is spending his life with us right now.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Okay, there you go. So there's that, and the joke is, anytime we say Before Life, we drink. So I'm drinking right now.
Cheers.
I have this unique liquor artifact I've gotten in my hand. It's a glass crystal skull, mostly glass actually, of I presume to be vodka. So Kingdom the
you
Crystal
don't know what's in it?
Yeah. Dan Aykroyd's vodka brand. Anyone? It's Canadian. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I know I've seen advertising for it. I don't remember the name of it right now.
Did you know that Dan Aykroyd is in Temple of Doom?
Yes, absolutely.
He is?
Yeah.
Yeah, when they're getting on the plane on China in the beginning, he's the guy with the British accent saying, this is a flight full of live poultry.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
it's a long shot, so you never see his face well, but that's him.
Oh,
I had no idea.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I recognize him.
I have a reason to watch Temple of Doom again now.
There you go. All right, Carrie, how's the quality of your day been so far?
Pretty good. I just got home from a nice Aikido class in the park. Where we were working in pairs, but 6 feet away from each other. So we have to know the movements and then know how to react to the movement, which is very, very interesting concept.
Interesting.
At the moment, yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's see, Derek, how you doing?
I'm good. I went for a long 2-hour walk out in nature today, and then I fell asleep and almost missed the recording, but fortunately I set an alarm.
Excellent. Because what else is there to do in Pennsylvania right now? Really? And of course, I should ask you this because it is the SciFi Pubcast. Derek, how's our kitchen doing?
It's good. I know you're expecting me to make the obvious food joke and say I have snake surprise or monkey brains, but instead I have nuke the fridge. You know those chalky, white, bland, disgusting Necco wafers that they have at like Halloween? Well, I put a bunch of them together into the shape of a refrigerator, and I nuked them in the microwave so that they melted and fused together into shape. So it looks like a little microwave, a fridge that you can eat. And to make it movie accurate, I did line it with lead on the inside.
Right.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah, I could see this happening.
I am too sober for this already.
Yeah, I can see this happening in like Indiana Jones 5. Yeah, that's going to be a scene Right, great.
Well, I just love that it's an homage to everyone's favorite part of everyone's favorite movie.
You know, I actually didn't know that there was a prequel trilogy until we did this podcast. I only knew about Crystal Skull, so, you know, it's great that there are other ones. They weren't as good, but, you know, prequels never are.
Oh, God. I need more Dan Aykroyd's vodka. That's my mission this afternoon. All right. Okay, Randall, how you doing down in London, Ontario, Canada?
Pretty good. Today's a lovely day. It is both the birthday of my lovely wife and the day on which she is finishing writing her PhD dissertation in clinical psychology. So it's a big day here. Not a ton of activity going on, given that we're still under lockdown in Ontario. But my father-in-law is coming over this evening for a socially distanced party out in the backyard. So the three of us will hang out 2 meters apart. Well, I'm allowed to be within a meter of my wife, I think. But we will stay 2 meters away from my father-in-law and have some cake and nachos and other fun stuff.
Excellent. That's good news. Yeah.
How you doing, Joel?
Well, I'm doing well. Nothing new on my front. I'm still in Ottawa. I'm still kind of locked down right now. I miss my beard, so yeah, this is maybe a 5-day, 6-day growth. I have to shave it off Monday for work, so yeah. So it's going to be different, you know, images of Joel for the next couple of months about beard, beardless, mid-beard, you know. Yeah.
I think you got to go with the handlebar mustache.
Yeah, I did that once actually, but yeah, just I don't think the timing's right for a handlebar mustache. Just saying. I also have my head actually got some sun, and I burn easily, so it's peeling. So I might actually wear my hat. Doesn't really work well with the mics.
Nice.
There you go. So yeah, left up my bullwhip. I'm not sure where it's at. Yeah, it's somewhere out there. Let's see. So that's kind of my status right now. I'm just taking things in. I've been monitoring Twitter at night and during the afternoon. I've been doing a lot of streaming and trying to keep sane. It's not working very much, but very well. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Our beer recommendation. Yes, I've actually managed to go to the grocery store and pick up some craft beers, some unique craft beers. So I've actually had the opportunity to try some of them. So the first one for this show, which I'm going to recommend, is the Red Falcon Ale by the Falcon Brewing Company out of Ajax, Ontario. It's a nice premium red ale. It has 5% alcohol by volume, and I couldn't find an IBU rating for this, so definitely check that one out. Yes, Ontario craft beers, mostly because that's the only craft beer I can get my hands on right now. But we're not here to talk about beer so much, and you know, my stupid hat or my sunburn on my bald sculpt. We're here to talk about the Indiana Jones franchise, guys! Yay!
Woo!
Woo!
Yeah. So yeah, Indiana Jones. It never gets old, does it? Yeah.
No.
So you'll be hard pressed to find a more iconic movie franchise. So you better grab your fedora and whip, because I'm thinking you'll need it for this discussion. So before we move on, if you haven't seen Indiana Jones, we are going to be talking spoilers a lot. So yeah, the movie's been out for more than a couple of decades. So even the last one that came out in 2008. So yeah, so this is a spoiler episode as always, because the SciFi Pubcast is a pub, and yeah, so it's like bar conversation. So let's start this way, guys. What do you think of this Indiana Jones franchise? This Indiana Jones business. What do you make of it? Go. Who wants to go first? Carrie, go.
Okay.
Carrie.
No, I love it. It's fun. It's a lot of just, you know, silly gags and stuff. I mean, the Lego game is one of my favorite Lego video games of the ones that have been released. Although they haven't released an update for the Crystal Skull, which is weird. Ironically, I don't hate Crystal Skull. It's not great, but I don't hate it.
Okay, well, there's that.
Unlike some other movies and other franchises, I could name Highlander 2.
Hate that movie.
I don't want to deny its existence.
Yeah. Cool. Derek, what's your overall impressions of Indiana Jones?
I loved Indiana Jones so much as a kid. I think when I was younger, I actually loved it just as much as Star Wars, because this was before there was all the Star Wars extra material. It was like just the trilogy. So as I remember as a little kid, I would come home from school and I would watch the same movies over and over again on an endless loop. And I basically watched Star Wars trilogy, Indiana Jones trilogy, and Doctor Who movies. Well, movies. So those were like the three things that I watched over and over again. So I, just like the Star Wars original trilogy, I have every second of these movies memorized, and I love them so much. And to this day, I have a deep, abiding love for any kind of 1930s style adventure serial, especially if it's against Nazis or something like that. And I like Kingdom Skull. It's not as good as the first three, but there's a lot of things to appreciate it, and we'll get into that later.
Okay. My own take, before I let Randall speak, because he's the most articulate one of all of us. Let's see. I'm with you, Derek. This is up there with Star Wars for me. I had such great childhood memories of Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom, and even later on, so the Last Crusade, right? So it came out in 1981, it was 84, and 1989. And so I was a young child, and it just hit me the right way. And I'm just ashamed of myself that I never became an archaeologist, and I never went out and actually spent time in the field digging up old things. I did work at historic sites for a couple of years as a university student, but yeah. So that's my take. Randall, my friend.
Well, I like the series a great deal. From the sound of you guys, I'm probably the least enthusiastic guy in the virtual room, but I do like it a lot. I've seen all of the movies several times, except, you can't say several with Crystal Skull. I've only seen it twice. And the second time was just to confirm my initial view that wasn't that great a film.
It wasn't.
I didn't particularly like that film. In terms of any of the movies, I absolutely loved The Last Crusade. For me, that was almost a perfect movie. It was my favorite of the series. For me, the downsides are it throws some bits of real life into sharp relief. Brian May from Queen is famous for saying something along the lines of, astrophysics is really fun unless you're an astrophysicist. And he is an astrophysicist, so Brian May is capable of saying that. And these movies make it look like archaeology and history and studying ancient mysticism are going to be quite rollicking and quite a good time. And then you go and, as a bright-eyed first-year student, take your first anthropology class, as I did, and realize that it's lying on dirty clay in Western Europe with a brush, brushing the earth away until you find a 2-centimeter square segment of pottery, and that's your day. Instead of you hardly ever get to punch a Nazi. You almost never unleash mystical forces or even run away from giant rolling boulders. So that's the downside for me. It makes me wish the world were more like it's depicted in the movie. I guess that's what movies are for.
But are there strong independent women? Beautiful women
in the real world. Yes, loads.
Okay, really. So I have a bit of problem with Willie in the Temple of Doom, but that's another thing. Okay.
And she went and married the director.
I know, after the fact. Careful.
I don't know. I like the what's her name in the first movie? Karen.
Karen Allen.
Karen Allen.
Yeah, Karen Allen. I liked her a great deal in that movie, and I liked the way she was depicted. But they do. Play up the damsel in distress issue from time to time in the indie films.
Yeah, I have to say right now, I took archaeology in third year of my undergrad, and it was the best mark I got in my undergrad. Yes, I took a spring evening course and got an A+ in it. I a 90, never unheard of in the humanities. I really enjoyed it.
Well, you probably remembered a lot of the stuff that they were studying as ancient history.
Yes. I would actually pursue the whole archaeology business or anthropology. Say the word for me. Anthropology.
Anthropology.
Yeah, I find it fascinating, but the problem is that, you need to be very competent at languages, which I struggle with. So at the time in the late 90s, we were told that if you want to do a PhD, you had to read Latin and Greek and be able to read either German and French. So yeah, that was beyond me. But I miss it. Maybe that'll be my retirement gig, because I'm looking for retirement gigs right now. So yeah.
I thought you were promising all of us jobs at your pub when you retire.
Hey,
Yeah.
I play the lottery twice a week. Actually, 4 times a week now, because I sign up for the automatic lottery tickets. So there you go. Okay. When I get paid out, we all gonna get paid out. Okay.
If you really want to play a lottery, just go outside and take off your mask.
Okay. I just find we're gonna get into Indiana Jones. I really like there's so much positive stuff happening in this franchise, and not just the movies. And there's been 4 movies, right? So we have the Raiders of the Lost Ark, we have Temple of Doom, we have the Last Crusade, and we have the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. But we also have Young Indiana Jones Chronicles from 92, 93, and there was like 4 made-for-TV movies after the fact, which I revisited this week, and I must admit, yeah, they're not great. Very slow and very, I don't know, very Scooby-Doo-ish in Indiana Jones sense. Yeah. There's also video games. Remember the Atari video game? Actually, what Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think it's called. Came out in 1982, and I saw a YouTube clip of it and say, yes, I played that as an 8-year-old. Thereabouts. Amazing.
No, I never played that one. The only closest I got to doing any kind of Indiana Jones style game was playing a lot of Montezuma's Revenge.
Yeah. But there's also comic books. There was a whole walk of Marvel comics, which came over to Dark Horse afterwards. So check that out. And then there's the novels. There's so many young novels. Novels, some of them are okay. Some of them are really atrociously bad. So, yeah.
Well, as much, Joel, as you hate the whole damsel in distress thing, I do find I think I already mentioned the Lego Indiana Jones game, but it is so much fun. A lot of stuff is like, okay, this is a kid's game, but if you're old enough to, understand some of the innuendos, they're there. And what was the girl's name from the second movie?
Willie.
Willie. Screaming is one of Willie's special powers in the game. It's great.
Yeah, but that's the joke. She makes it all the time when you see interviews with her, which I have this week.
Well, no, it's like if you need some glass broken, she just screams at it and the glass breaks.
That's great.
Now, this will resonate with Joel, thinking of the Raiders of the Lost Ark video game. What about the video game that is not actually Raiders of the Lost Ark, but that owes all of its success to Raiders of the Lost Ark? Pitfall.
Pitfall.
That was the other one.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Tomb Raider, but the Pitfall is best. I love that.
Yeah, Pitfall Harry. And not directly related to Indiana Jones at all, but I was reading up on the game, just thinking about this podcast today.
Yeah.
And it came out in 1982, and it was the most successful video game at the time for the Atari 2600. And most of that success is attributed by some people to the fan following from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Nice.
Wow.
They did a remake of that at one point, and they had played Ash, Bruce Campbell doing the narration for the guy, and I think one of my roommates at the time had it, or we had rented it, and it was a bitch of a game, but the commentary was fun because it was Bruce Campbell.
Oh, wow.
Right, we digress again.
Yeah. Hey, before we let Derek talk, I just want to say one quick thing. Yeah, so there's one major podcast that's been covering Indiana Jones for decades. It's called the IndieCast. It used to be part of the Forcecast network back in the day where some of us were involved with that. It is a very good show. It goes on for about 3 hours. Episodes are released like every couple of weeks. They're on episode 292. if you're into Indiana Jones and fandom, I definitely recommend the IndieCast because these guys live it. They just love that. That's their fan. So.
I listened to a couple of them. I never understood what can they talk about bi-weekly for a dead franchise that only has, you know.
Well, more not dead. It's kind of zombie-ish right now, but still.
Yeah.
I would just call it dead thing. There's 4 Disney rides with Indiana Jones theme. You know, come on.
Isn't there another one coming out in July 2022?
Yeah,
allegedly.
Allegedly, it was supposed to start shooting like now, but the whole COVID-19 pandemic has gotten in the way. And Harrison Ford is how old is he now? He's like 70. He was born 42, so yeah, do the math.
Yeah.
He is not young.
68. Okay. 78? 78.
78.
Yeah, 78. That's why, yeah.
Well, weren't they supposed to have started shooting last year? They had to push it back.
Ugh.
So
it's been pushed back a lot of times.
I mean, this is between this and New Mutants, it's almost a running gag at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, Derek, you want to say something, or should I get into what I want to talk about?
So I just remembered I had a bunch of visuals that I forgot to grab ahead of time. So I have a bunch of Indiana Jones books. I don't think I've read any of them yet, but I got a bunch of them at the used bookstore. There is a large number of Indiana Jones novels, and wow. I don't know which are the good ones and which are the bad ones. All the ones that I have are either by Max McCoy or Rob McGregor. And I remember reading on a website one time that one of those two, like, he was the good one, and he wrote all the best Indiana Jones ones. But I can't remember which one is which. But I was able to get a whole bunch of them for pretty cheap. I've read a few of them in the past, and they were enjoyable. I mean, obviously they're not as good as the movies. You know, how can they be? But I remember having a good time with them. And there's a lot more than this. I think there's like 20 or 30 of them.
Derek,
they all came out around in the 90s and the 2000s.
Derek, they belong in a museum.
And another thing I loved, I think one of the first computer games I ever played was Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. It was a very, very simple 8-bit game, maybe 16-bit game. It was on the computer. It was in the mid-90s. And it had voice dialogue, which was a big deal back then. And you moved Indy on a 2D platform, and it was like a puzzle game with limited action. So you would have to like walk around in environments and find things. And I remember playing that with my sister, and we got all the way to Atlantis, and then there was a bit where there's like a sea monster or a kraken or an octopus or something, and we never figured out how to get past the damn thing, so we never beat the game. But I remember loving playing that game as a kid, and the guy that got to play Indiana Jones's voice was actually really good. He sounded very close to Harrison Ford.
Cool. All right. You know, here's where I'm thinking about this stuff, right? And I think it's partly the reason why Crystal Skull was not a good movie. It's because I think Indiana Jones, despite the fact that it takes place in the 30s and early 40s, and the Crystal Skull takes place in the 50s, it's just that it's hard to translate to the new to the younger generations, right? Because you look at it, like look at Indiana, right? What does he do? Well, let's see. He goes around and he acquires artifacts, which he then sells to a museum for money.
Not to mention destroying priceless temples in order to get to them.
Not to mention using violence to protect himself and to deal with certain gangsters and competitors. Yeah, I think that's problematic.
Well, one of the something I am just now remembering. Is a discussion I was having with a coworker years and years ago before they even started talking about Crystal Skull. I think there were rumors at one time that they were going to send him after like Noah's Ark rather than just the Ark of the Covenant. And someone pointed out that if you think about it, which are considered the two better indie movies of the original trilogy. It's Raiders and it's Last Crusade, and it's like the better indie movies are the ones where he's going after whole like objects from the Bible, religious objects from the Bible, rather than just a random artifact somewhere.
Yeah, I think the whole MacGuffin is so important for the Indiana Jones series. You have to have a good MacGuffin. If you don't, well, there's a problem. Crystal Skulls, not a particularly good MacGuffin. And even Spielberg said that after the fact.
But the good thing about the Crystal Skull, the silver lining to the Crystal Skull, is that it takes Indy firmly.
Don't you mean the lead lining?
Nice. It brings Indy firmly into the realm of science fiction, which allows us to talk about him on this podcast.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, we're not.
Loophole.
Oh, we do geek stuff.
I was gonna ask if you're gonna John Hurt was like a good thing about that movie.
Yeah, not much about that movie stays in my brain as a good thing. I mean, I was happy when I was watching it because I was watching an Indiana Jones film, and I mean that's better than doing most other things that one does in a day. But it to me, and I don't want to sound too cranky because I'm being the grumpy old man in this episode. It seemed to be some lazy writing and some tired kind of action, and I really like the notion in Indiana Jones that mysticism is real, and that was missing. The sort of magical realism and the hints that maybe spirituality is a thing that really exists. Like one has to assume that there is a god out there for Indiana Jones to work. Or that there are many gods, if you're going to take into account the second movie, and that this spiritual reality is out there infusing power into archaeological spots, and that's kind of neat. And then suddenly now there are aliens. It just seemed to me to be
interdimensional beings.
Yeah, it was just sort of a weird left turn.
Well, it's like suddenly the Indiana Jones movies takes on like a bit of a Von Denken type aspect to it, and that's just weird.
Yeah.
I have read a couple of his books, and with a grain of salt attached to them, but it's a fascinating theory. It's fascinating theory, but it kind of doesn't work for Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it was neat having it firmly grounded in religious mythology. And once we sort of step away from that and can't even identify a particular extant religion or spirituality or theology with which the fantasy elements of the movie are associated, to me it just becomes less interesting. Like you're playing with a neat idea. What if there really is this supremely powerful being who leaves objects on Earth and people worship that being, and Hitler tries to get the Ark of the Covenant, and then the American army tries to get the Ark of the Covenant, and it's I found that really, really cool. And to me, that flavor was missing entirely from the Crystal Skull. So again, not a terrible movie, but in terms of being an Indiana Jones film, wah wah.
Yeah,
Crystal Skulls are a real thing, though.
Well, they. Yeah, so if you go to the British Museum, which I have several times, they have a crystal skull on display, and they think it's a forgery from like the 19th century, the 18th century.
Mm.
Right?
But it is something part of a Mesoamerican faith, though, isn't it?
No, it's basically. I'm just going from memory. You say American faith? No, this
South American.
Yeah, so
were they supposed to be Aztec or Inca or Mayan or?
Yeah, I don't know, Derek.
But I could easily be wrong about this, but I thought that was an actual cultural thing that they were drawing on. Not that they were space aliens, but I mean, like, I know Quetzalcoatl was, like a strange visitor god from another area that people often interpret as being like an alien or a white man who somehow got there in ancient times.
Oh, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page on crystal skulls, and they've been claimed to be pre-Columbian Mesoamerican artifacts, but every one so far that's been found has been determined to be a fake. And I'm just looking at a line here. Despite some claims presented in an assortment of popularizing literature, legends of crystal skulls with mystical powers do not figure in genuine Mesoamerican or other Native American mythologies and spiritual accounts. So it seems to be bunk, unlike all other religions, which are real.
Well, I think my other issue with Crystal Skull is that we already have a franchise that deals with the idea that the gods may have been aliens and that did it way better, and that would be Stargate.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Thor.
Well, I could say that too, but my first thought was Stargate.
Yeah, I just don't like the Ancient Alien thing because I think it's complete bullshit. And you talk about real archaeologists and scientists, it's insulting to the indigenous communities, right? That, oh, wait, man was so stupid 3,000 years ago, they couldn't build the pyramids without support of ancient aliens. So, and you see that because you still have people who go down to South America, places like Peru, and they dig up mummies that looks like aliens because it's a child mummy, right? From hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, and they smuggle it back into the States and say, hey, there's an alien we dug up in Peru. It's paying money to see it. And that's been a thing for decades. And the governments are trying to put a stop to it, but if you just... it's kind of like when reality reflects fiction and fiction reflects reality. Indiana Jones it's a dangerous movie. It's a dangerous type of storytelling, which, especially in this given age, because how do you separate a great story with iconic characters, which characters we care about, and the sense of adventure, fortune and glory, travel, with the fact that you're dealing with a time period where colonialism was a real thing? And there's good things about colonialism, and there's a lot of bad things about colonialism, right? And how we are going to use that to tell a story without being racist and insulting, and and not being respectful or disrespectful. That's a problem. And I think that's the reason why, say, Crystal Skull didn't catch on, despite the fact that it used a lot of the tropes found in the first three movies. Because people are looking and going, not only was Harrison Ford very old for it, not only is there the whole alien business, which didn't particularly work, and yet we can, I just thought the CGI, especially with the ants, weren't very good. I just didn't like the whole double agent business with not Mutt, the other guy, right? But it's just, is it the fact that society has moved on and it's only people of our generation who really enjoy Indiana Jones? What do you guys think?
Tell me how you really feel, Joel.
No, it's a problem because I love this. I love tiki bars, right? Okay, I'm trying to figure out. Here I am. I'm trying to set up an outline for my own fictional story, right? Involving tiki bars and all this stuff. Problem is, how do you do it in a respectful manner, right? Where you don't have a bunch of native tribesmen chasing Indiana Jones down from the hill, trying to kill him with blow darts. So he jumps on a float plane and flies away with Jock Lindsay, right? So it's like. Is that historical accurate? Is it taking liberties? Is it racist? Well, it's a matter of degrees, and it's just a really bad time to try to use it as a form of storytelling. I'm struggling with that.
Yeah, there's definitely problematic and racist aspects to all the movies. I mean, it is set in the 30s, so. I don't know. Like if you're gonna tell a story set in the 30s, some of that is gonna be in there, no matter what. And then I rewatched Temple and Crystal for this, and there's definitely a lot of problematic parts in them that you definitely would not make in a movie today. Yeah. But I mean it was a commentary on the times, while at the same time, being a problem. And,
Yeah, even if I'm going to write a story and my hero is going to be a white guy, that's because I'm a white guy, that's why that's my perspective, right? Even then, you want to put your guy in a place where you're dealing with other cultures, especially in the 1930s and 40s, with the history, with the legacy of colonialism. Will people enjoy that? No. So I think that's part of the reason why Indiana Jones is not a living franchise. It's not a strong franchise right now because it's generational.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, like a teenager today is not going to have any kind of knowledge or nostalgia for 1930s adventures or things like that.
I'll use this example, and because it's a favorite example, and I tried to find the documentary where I actually heard them talk about this. I couldn't find it, so that tells you something right there. So, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Indiana Jones is in this marketplace, I believe in Cairo, right? Okay. What's her name? Ravenwood. Ravenwood.
Ravenwood.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, she's kidnapped, right? Okay, right. So, and there's a bunch of Arabs around, and then one guy, big giant guy with a scimitar, big giant sword. Remember this scene?
Yeah.
Okay. And Indiana Jones takes one look at going, I'm so tired. Takes out his pistol and shoots him, right? After the guy with the scimitar does this whole waving the swords business, right? And just goes on with it, right? And just the way Harrison Ford did it was just amazing. The scene works so well.
Well, that is like scenes like that, because there's a similar one in like one of the Three Musketeers movies. Yeah, you just shoot them.
Yeah,
and it's like this is like an oversimplification of something my teacher tries to tell us about. You know, like you can be as fancy as you want, but if there's no structure behind what you're doing, then it's not going to work.
Right.
And you know, something that's basic and simple, like, you know, just pulling out a gun and shooting someone is going to be more effective than, you know, waving a sword around. I mean, I could do that right now. I have a Tonto right in front of me. I could do this all I want, and it's gonna look impressive to you. But I would know, and anyone with any training would know that I'm just, you know, waving my sword around.
Yeah.
So now, isn't the lore on that particular cinematic moment that Harrison Ford was suffering from dysentery, feeling quite sick?
Absolutely. So what happened, and there's 2 points I want to make, is that most of the crew was sick from food poisoning, right? The only person who wasn't sick was Spielberg, because he bought a bunch of canned food and bottled water from England, and that's what he was surviving on, right? So he didn't eat at the restaurant, at the hotel. So Harrison Ford was so sick, they were going to do this whole fight sequence, and Harrison Ford, can't I just shoot him with my gun? Right? And then Spielberg finally says, fine, it works, just get on with it. That's what Spielberg does, he's a director, right? What I find interesting is, and this is going back to this documentary I remember seeing decades ago. So, Indiana Jones, it came out in mid to late 81. What happened at the very start of 1981, the year, was the whole Iran hostage situation. They released the hostages. This is after 2 years of the whole Iran hostage thing playing out on the newscast, right? The American public was so mad at Iran, and of course the American public was all about, the Middle East. This is like 1979 to 1981, right? So when this movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, came out, and that scene happened, the people in the cinema, they went wild. They loved it because it actually represented what they were feeling, all the angst and frustration of the whole Iranian hostage situation. And they did make a hostage attempt to free them, and that went militarily bad, very bad, right? So that in itself tells you a lot about what people, Americans especially, and the free world was thinking back then, 1981. And was it racist? Absolutely. And
I never heard of that context for it before. That's interesting.
And so when I try to find a documentary where they actually comment on that and explain it much better than I just did now, I can't find the documentary.
Oh. Well, I mean, that is something that happens. I mean, I remember after 9/11, people got pissed at my company for the fact that we had Afghanistan listed first in the list of countries you're from.
No.
Like it's listed alphabetically, dude.
Nah.
Afghanistan is first. Eventually, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So I think it's problematic. But then again, the flip side, trying to be positive, Indiana Jones, the franchise, the storytelling, took us to parts of the world which we've never seen before as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it stimulated so much interest in travel and history and anthropology, all this good stuff. Right? Is that, so it's a trade-off. So it's kind of the murky definition of what is racism, it's a matter of degrees, and all of that. And I just think, despite the fact that I love the series dearly, I think Disney will have a problem rebooting the series, even with younger actors, because of the nature of it. And I think they're going to do like a soft version of this with Jungle Cruise once that comes out, whenever it comes out. Next year, I think now.
Yeah. I think the only way you could do it properly, I would guess, and I'm just taking a wild stab at this, would be having Indy work with highly competent and respectful local collaborators. Sort of the idea that should have been Sulla, John Rhys Davies' character, who's actually a Welshman playing a person of the relevant race, but have actual actors portraying of the race in question, portraying those people in a respectful manner that is respectful of the history that they're examining, and maybe not treat all the people who have that particular color of face as the enemy or someone whose graves can be despoiled and bits and pieces sold off to museums. But treat it respectfully the way modern archaeology is done, with your fantastical flair, of course, and some action and adventure thrown in. But, your enemies could be rival collectors like Belloc. That was a great enemy that wasn't portrayed in a particularly racist way.
Wait.
Or if you
wait a second.
Except that he was a Nazi.
Yeah, he was a Nazi, but it was actually an Englishman portraying a Frenchman.
Yeah.
Think about that one.
We're still allowed to not like Nazis, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And obviously everyone hates Nazis and white supremacists.
Just make those the bad guys because they are bad guys, and I think it's still doable. But yeah, you would have to massage some of it. I am sometimes a little bit vexed at only in some instances of applying a modern lens to historical things, right? Like 200 years from now, are people going to look at a movie and say, oh my God, that person is eating meat in that movie. We can't ever watch that movie again. The dude had a hamburger and that's just evil. That might be the case, but I do think sometimes within limits, we have to judge things by the time at which they were done. But I say that from a privileged position of being a white dude in a country that is predominantly white. And I don't know what it's like to live under that particular form of oppression and to have to see that reflected in a supposedly fantastical, fun film. Yeah. So I do recognize that, airing an old Indiana Jones movie today might be problematic. I think that with enough care and sensitivity, you could definitely take the series forward in a way that was respectful of current times. I mean, I struggle with this a lot because one of my favorite authors of all time is P.G. Wodehouse, and he writes in like the 1920s, and you will be reading along, having a grand old time, and then the depiction of black people in his books, when they come up at all, highly problematic, and it takes all the joy out of the page, and you suddenly wonder, should I be reading this thing? So I get where Joel's coming from. I have to admit, I've never thought along those lines about the Indiana Jones films before. But again, I come at it from this position of privilege where I haven't had to think about things that way very often.
Yeah.
So, C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia is the same way. Especially Prince Caspian. I believe Horse and His Boys, like all the villains are black-skinned people. Like that's a little obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, let's take this. I put my historian hat on, right? Okay. And I read a lot of history. I have a degree in history, and I'm of the mindset that you need to study history, everything, warts and all, right? And it's very hard to put a moral judgment. Sometimes you should, like Nazis are bad. Yeah, I'm completely weird. That's black and white. But 99% of the stuff out there is gray. It's a gray area. And I see things like, and this is common now, and it's seeping in onto different YouTube shows I watch and different communities who are going after this. Take a person like Winston Churchill. You know how many times I now see people call him racist? He should be, his statue should be torn down. He's a genocidal maniac because of what he did in India, and that he wanted to keep India, and he prevented food shipments from getting to India. Yeah, that's true. But there's a whole lot of things, too, with the context, right? You know, the Battle of Britain, you know, the finest day, the whole, you know, Hitler trying to invade England business. That's kind of important as well.
Well, I mean, we have the same issue here with Jefferson.
Yeah. Yeah, Jefferson had a child from his black slave. That's rape, right?
Yeah.
He's a rapist. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, so when you're dealing with history, it's hard to put a fun fictional story in history.
Well, and that actually goes to a deeper issue. Something a friend of mine did a blog post on. It's like, the problem with cancel culture in general is that once you've canceled something, you've closed the door on any kind of ability to learn from it.
Yeah.
Or you know, reopen discussion and, you know, try to figure out what's going on. So you can't just forget. You can't just decide, oh, we're not going to talk about this because it's racist or it's crap or whatever. No, we need to. No, that's part of the problem with. I mean, and I know we don't. I'm getting way into, you know, stuff, but it's like part of the problem with what's going on right now is that a lot of people are forgetting things that happened, you know, 80 years ago.
Yeah, I just think science fiction is a great avenue to avoid all this stuff. Like, people never comment about, say, The Expanse being racist because the Expanse writers purposely changed, you know, the dynamics, right? It's about bolters and earthers and Martians, right? If you know the Expanse, that TV show and series of books, where they're really hitting the head on the nail in terms of racism, because that happens, right? Well, but not based on race; it's based on other factors. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they are being racist, but in a way that they're not racist. They're not racist against people because of the color of their skin. They're being racist by virtue of their against, you know, a certain caste of people who are, you know, it's similar enough that that I would hope people would say, oh, that's what that looks like.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I like punching Nazis. Yeah. In my films.
Yeah, I mean, all joking aside, to reboot Indiana Jones, just have them fight Nazis. Just have it set in the 30s and the 40s and do kind of World War II type stories, because, you know, there's nothing problematic about him going after Nazis, and just avoid any kind of racist stuff, you know, with indigenous peoples. It can be the Nazis who are being disrespectful to the indigenous peoples, and Indy who is there to help.
Yeah.
That could work.
And they use the same with the Soviets, right? Because Soviets was the bad guys, in history during the Cold War, and you see that in Crystal Skull. I don't know.
Or have them do Canadian archaeology. Nothing problematic there at all, right? History of, and I'm
residential schools.
Being facetious. Yeah, I know. History of bad treatment of indigenous people, and we have massively problematic history here too, and it's just the rest of the world doesn't seem to know about it, and we keep our closets closed with all the skeletons hidden inside them, but it is difficult, but I don't see it being that difficult to actually address the problematic issues. I do think if you were to make an indie movie today, you could set it in the same setting, you could have a similar plot, but you'd need to problematize the notion of the white savior, or the notion of desecrating graves of locals, and address it in a different way. You can still explore archaeology, you can still explore ancient mysticism, but I think the flavor has to change slightly.
Yeah, you see the same debates. Who's going to be the next James Bond? Why don't you make him a woman? Why do you make James Bond to have a black actor playing him? I think with James Bond that makes sense. Indiana Jones, not so much, because the historical racism and bigotry that was known that was part of that age. So.
Right.
Yeah, some characters are kind of locked into what kind of person they're going to be. Like Mark Bernardin has famously said that Batman can't be black because Bruce Wayne is the descendant of, rich white culture. So and like that doesn't exist. Like there weren't rich white African Americans who are pillars of society, 200 years ago. Bruce Wayne has to be white.
Rich white African Americans is kind of a contradiction right there. So.
But yeah, the fact of the matter, I love Indiana Jones, and because it brings so many tropes. Okay, let's talk about the animals. I'm a big animal fan. I love my animals, right? Okay, I love my snakes, my spiders, my monkey brains, my scorpions. Ants, not so much, right? So if you look at the
elephants, I love the elephants.
Elephants is good. What else is it? Camels, no camels, right? No camels. Yeah. Let's look at how the series progressed, and that's the problem when you have these serial type movies, and you have to up the jeopardy every single movie, right, to make it more bigger. The cliffhangers are much taller to fall off the cliff, right? So you went from Snakes and Raiders of the Lost Ark to Temple of Doom, which is all about bugs, to The Last Crusade, which was rats mostly, and then to Crystal Skull, which is scorpions and ants. It's just what's the jeopardy? What else can happen which is so important besides aliens or interdimensional beings, right? What's the next bad guy? Like, what's the next MacGuffin?
Flesh-eating bacteria.
Yeah, And the whole thing with MacGuffin, besides there's a good documentary that's actually on YouTube, which is easy to find, which is a re-edited documentary they released when they released the first three movies on DVD back in the day, which I have them. And they added clips about Indiana Jones 4, right? So Crystal Skull in that. But George Lucas made the good point where, MacGuffins are really hard, and then you have to get rid of the MacGuffin sometime at the end of the story. That's a problem. Right? So the Ark of the Covenant, right, goes to warehouse, which we now know as Area 51, right? The Sankara stones. Two of the Sankara stones fell into the river, and the other one went back to the village, right? The Last Crusade with the Holy Grail. Well, it did its purpose. It saves Indiana Jones' father, right, from dying, and it fell into this ravine.
I feel bad for the old sword-wielding guardian who was there for all those thousands of years. Like, what happens to him now that the Grail is gone? Does he have to keep drinking it to be alive, or is he going to croak now? I often wondered about that. But I mean, you can come up with all kinds of MacGuffins if you want to draw them from Judeo-Christian religious texts. The Crown of Thorns, a piece of the cross.
The one I've heard about much is the spear, where the Roman
Spear of
legionnaire
Destiny?
is
The Spear of Longinus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that hasn't been used at all.
Mm-hmm.
Constantine.
But yeah, you could have you could have Templar gold, you could have Solomon's Temple.
Noah's Ark, as we already said.
Noah's Ark would be difficult. I've been thinking about that because sort of the idea that it was a thing sort of obliterates the notion of ancient archaeology. I think
right. Unless Noah was a Time Lord and he actually
no time travel, please, Indiana Jones, please, no time travel.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. No, I've just been seeing posts about what people believe, what people don't believe in, and how, and the same people believe that Noah could get all the animals onto one ship, and like, yeah, there's a Time Lord somewhere in that story.
Well, and that all the animals lived in walking distance of the Ark.
That too.
I like that.
That too.
Well, the one thing.
Well, obviously the flying ones flew the other ones there.
Fair enough.
Obvious.
I think the one thing we can agree on about the Indiana Jones serials, though, is that they finally accurately depict how exciting a professor's life is day to day.
Absolutely. So
it's so exciting he needs to get out of the office, apparently.
So how is your travel budget at Western University, Randall?
Yeah, I don't end up in those same far-flung activities. In fact, the only trip that I've taken with another faculty member ever is the Star Trek cruise.
And you had to pay for that yourself.
I did. I couldn't find a way to write it off. I did send a text from the cruise ship to the dean saying, can this count as a faculty meeting if there are two of us here? And can I use some of my professional development budget? But I think she thought I was joking.
Oh, dear Lord. There's so many good things about this.
Just explain, Randall, that it was for science. And
yeah, I say that about everything, though. That's the problem. Now, one connection between that I must admit to between the Indiana Jones franchise and Before Life, drink. Is that the character Ham, who is supposed to be Hammurabi, still alive in the afterlife now, hanging out with Abe, the ruler of Detroit, that was entirely John Rhys Davies in my head. Every time I write a Ham scene, it's John Rhys Davies.
That's fantastic. That's great. It's great because there's so many good things in these Indiana Jones movies, right? So many good tropes. The mystery, the travel, the adventure, maps. I'm a huge map person. That's beautiful. Sure, the maps doesn't really make much sense in the movies if you actually look at the geography, right? But still, it's a very good way to visualize them going from point A to point B by having an old map with a line being moved across the center of it. That's cool.
That's very cool.
Does anyone know if Raiders of the Lost Ark invented that? Because if they did, that's a brilliant piece of... cinematic speech.
If they did, they completely screwed with my mind because they made me think that I remember seeing that in old films, but I might be completely wrong about that. Like I thought it was a thing that they did. Things that I love, just thinking about other stuff that I love. I love some of the actors who, in addition to Harrison Ford, who, hats off to him being in some of the greatest movie franchises ever, playing some of the greatest characters ever. But I loved River Phoenix as young Indy. I thought that was just a fantastic depiction. And I love Sean Connery as his dad. I just thought that was a masterstroke of casting. I thought, like Sean Connery, I never thought of as a particularly fine actor. I thought he was all right.
What?
But I'm baffled. But that movie made me love him. Prior to that, I mean, I didn't see him the way he's depicted on Jeopardy, Celebrity Jeopardy, Saturday Night Live. But I didn't see him as great an actor as I came to think of him after I saw The Last Crusade. I just thought that was fabulous, and I loved the fact that he was this gentle sort of professorial guy who was still able to be of great assistance to Indy by remembering his Charlemagne. And I just thought the writing around that character was fantastic as well.
So Sean Connery was 12 years older than Harrison Ford during The Last Crusade. So they were close to the same age. They're 12 years apart.
I remember when Harrison Ford did Inside the Actors Studio, James Lipton asked him about that, and Harrison's response was like, Sean. Like, okay. I'm not entirely sure what that was supposed to be implying, or maybe I am sure, but I'm trying not to think about it.
Oh, wow. There's so many regular customs of the Indiana Jones movies, like the opening scene where you go from the Paramount logo to a mountaintop. All right, every single movie has a different one. Crystal Skull has a mound with a gopher, which is not very good and probably tells a lot about the movie, right? So that's kind of cool. I like the fact that in Raiders Lost Ark, there's a pet monkey who was very important to the plot because the monkey was trying to poison Indiana Jones.
Even Zeke Hiles.
Yeah, Zeke Hiles. Yeah, reminds me of Celestius Crumb in Return of the Jedi, which only came out 2 years later. So you think about it. I think there's a direct creative link or inspirational link between the pet monkey from Raiders of the Lost Ark and Celestius Crumb from Return of the Jedi. That's my
I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, Lucas and Spielberg are buddies, so yeah.
Yeah. Transportation. Can we think of any other transportation methods? Let's see. We have a zeppelin. We have a submarine. We have horses. No camels. We have float planes. We got a rubber raft. Mine cars. Rolls Royces. Army trucks. We said elephants, right? Tanks.
Jungle vines.
Speedboats and trains. Jungle vines. You have to develop, you have to create new forms of transportation just for the Indiana Jones franchise.
Zeppelins that you can throw Nazis out of.
Oh, that's great.
Ticket.
Yeah,
For having no ticket.
It's so good, so good. What else is? What's his name? One of the stunt people, the Nazi in the first movie, who the big guy at the wing plane, Roach, I think his last name. I'm trying to find. Was it Peter Roach? I'm trying to remember his first name. Any which way, he was in all 3 of the first ones. He was a stunt guy, big stunt guy, right? So it's like there's always these little common things that makes a franchise great because of the tie-ins. This is like Easter eggs before Easter eggs were a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the Wilhelm screams.
Yeah.
I was just looking that up. Instances of the Wilhelm screams in Indiana Jones.
Can you do it?
No.
Ow!
But okay, when they start up the again, I just watch a bunch of stuff on this stuff, right? Okay, so they reuse the sound of engines starting up or not working well. It's the same sound from the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. Actually, it would be is it Star Wars or probably Empire Strikes Back? That's probably more accurate, right? Okay, but like the Jock Lindsay float plane from the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's the same sound.
Nice.
R2D2 and 3CPO being carved into the tomb of where the Ark was at. That's like the original Easter egg, right?
like again, the Lucas and Spielberg were buddies, so I'm sure their production teams were like, oh, we can do something about this here and stuff. It's fine.
I think we have to at some point when humans are allowed to gather together in the same room again. As a Sci-Fi Pubcast tribute to the Indiana Jones franchise, we have to try to recreate the drinking game from the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Absolutely. Thanks for volunteering to hosting it. We're all going to come to London, Ontario, and spend time with you in your lovely house and your lovely wife drinking your beer.
I'll do it.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Mind you, during this lockdown, I've been actually making my own home bar. I don't actually have a bar. I got bookshelves full of liquor bottles now, and I've been focusing on making cocktails and learning about cocktails. That's my new hobby: is trying to perfect cocktails and tiki. Yeah, so
nice.
I've actually specially ordered like syrups and stuff like that. I'm getting way into this game. Okay.
Well, I mean, this is practice for when you open your bar, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And YouTube's my friend. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos about cocktails. I can tell you that, and food, but mostly cocktails. So, I'm just pouring myself another drink before I start my next train of thought.
Before we go
ahead.
I would. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we go, I know we've been kind of talking shit about Crystal Skull. I'd like to hear what everyone's favorite parts of Crystal Skull was. Like, for me, I absolutely love the opening at Area 51. I think that's a completely iconic Indiana Jones sequence all the way through. Yes, nuking the fridge is stupid, but I mean, that opening whole sequence, I absolutely love unabashedly. I remember seeing that in the theater. I was like, wow, this actually is going to be a worthy sequel. And then it trailed off after that. And then the other part that I really liked was the jungle chase. Yes, swinging on the vines like Tarzan was stupid. But aside from that, I think that is an amazing set piece where they're chasing each other on the jeeps through the forest, and they're fighting with swords on the 2 different trucks, and they're going in and out with each other. And then it ends with the those carnivorous ants. I don't know what you call them, but I thought that those two sequences are really amazing action scenes.
Yeah, Crystal Skull. Let's see. I do not like Shia LaBeouf playing Mutt Willem.
See, I actually liked him in it.
I actually quite enjoyed John Hart playing Professor Oxley. No, the Ox.
He was. Well, John Hurt is amazing in whatever he did. So.
I didn't like Crystal Skull. I thought some of the sequences were okay. I have many problems with it. I actually like the sequence from Marshall College, right? The whole library business. And little tidbits. You know whose son was playing the kid who asked Indy about reading and about archaeology? He had some sort of question in the library when Indiana Jones with Mutt Williams with their bike trying to escape the KGB agents, right? That's what you call it? God, I'm not having a brain. Yeah, wait, Mike. What's? Oh my God, I'm brain fart. Let me look this up. Mike Hanks. That was his son.
Oh, nice.
Tom Hanks. I want to say Mike. Yeah, Tom Hanks. Maybe his first name's Mike. That's probably it. Okay, but it was Tom Hanks' son playing that kid.
One of them. Yeah.
Wait, was it Colin Hanks, a famous actor, or the other one who's like a rapper?
I don't know.
Well, he has three sons, I think.
Yeah, because Colin Hanks is on Life in Pieces.
So,
my favorite part of the Crystal Skull was just hands down the nuclear fridge.
So utterly far-fetched and stupid.
Well, honestly, I laughed harder at that moment, and not in the spirit of things way, than I have in many movies. Like I was actually, not that I could make a better movie. I would make a crappy movie probably, but I laughed out loud at that scene because I was just blown away that someone thought to put that in a movie. It just seemed so crazy to me. Then I thought of all the kids across America getting into abandoned refrigerators. I'm like, this is such a problem for so many reasons.
Yeah, it was Chet Hanks, by the way.
Cool.
I do have a piece of fan wink to explain that away. Indy does drink from the Holy Grail in Last Crusade. He does pass over the seal, but there's a popular fan theory that drinking the water still gave him some kind of longevity, because in the Indiana Jones Chronicles, which we haven't talked about yet, by the way, he like much older than he should be in it. I think because he's kind of like not immortal, but he was granted extended life by the Grail water. So
you're saying it's heavy water that saved him from that atomic bomb?
Well, like I'm saying, he's more than just human, and that what should have broken all of his bones, he was able to survive because of that.
Well, and his dad's immortal too, right? Because from being in Highlander.
Yeah, don't lose your head.
Maybe it's going to turn out that way in the past that Indiana Jones always was Han Solo, and he never actually died when Ben killed him, and he just lurked around, eventually made his way to Earth, and became an archaeology professor.
Yeah, it was a different dimension. Yeah, totally.
It's all one world.
Everything's connected.
Yep.
Oh God.
Did you all like the Area 51 sequence, though?
I love the whole idea of Area 51. I've taken the Area 51 tour from Las Vegas to the gate, right? So I find the mythology of the UFO business and all that's fascinating. Did it work for Crystal Skull? Not so much. I don't think it was the right way to do Indiana Jones. I didn't hate it. Let's just say that.
Fair enough.
Just because we're on the whole lead fridge saving Indiana Jones from the atomic blast testing thing, right? The other little thing that happened in the movies, which at the time was so far-fetched and still is the whole Temple of Doom. After getting away from the Chinese gangster, being on the plane, flying over India, and the two pilots decides to say, "Oh, we're just going to jump out and leave Indiana, Willie, and Short Round there." Yeah, and when they jump out of the plane using a rubber raft, which went down, hits a snow-covered side of a mountain, slides down, goes over a huge cliff into a river that eventually gets them to India, right? Yeah, that's a bit far-fetched.
Well, you see, the raft was acting as a parachute and it slowed down their descent.
Okay, we should test that out. Okay, Derek, you can be our test subject. How's
Yeah,
that?
you go first, Derek.
Yeah, it's just
I
sometimes.
love the short round character now that you've mentioned him.
Oh yeah, I love short round.
The depiction may be slightly problematic from a way we portray people of other races, but I thought the kid was brilliant.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he and Indy were equals in their relationship, and that, like, you know, he bickered with him and like bossed him around. That he wasn't just like a kid, or he wasn't like his sidekick. They were actually equals.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I agree. And also, it was Data from Goonies, so it just, you know.
Absolutely. So, I just saw him live at Fan Expo in Toronto last year. Yeah. Him and Sean
Nice.
Austin and Corey, what's his name? And yeah, did the whole Goonies reunion business. So,
Nice.
let's talk for a couple more minutes before we put this show to bed. There's still a lot to talk about because it's Indiana Jones. It's all good. But I would be remiss if I don't mention the 4 different Indiana Jones rides at Disney World and Disneyland Paris, and Disney Sea in Tokyo. And I've been to the ones. I've been to Disney World and Disneyland, and most importantly, I've been to Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar in Disney Springs several times. Which is an Indiana Jones theme bar, which is amazing. I took lots of photographs. I've been there for Christmas, so they put this Christmas holiday layover in the bar, which is great. I've been there when it's not the holidays. Definitely recommend Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar at Disney. Guys, have you checked out any of the Disney attractions I just mentioned?
Oh, I've been on the indie ride here in Disneyland several times. Before and after they changed it. So originally, when the ride opened, there were 3 different tracks you could take. And it's basically the same track, but there were 3 different versions of Mara that you would meet, and the ride would begin and end differently depending on which track you started on. But the ride kept breaking down, so eventually they just had the one. They just left it for the one track.
Oh wow! I said Disney World, right? So the one is at Hollywood Studios. It's not a ride per se. It's the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. It's a stage show.
Ah, nice.
So it's not like the whole dark ride from Disneyland.
Yeah, it recreates the set pieces from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and since Disney World is my spot, I've seen that show so many damn times. I have like every moment memorized.
Hey, 2000 and I'm thinking 17. I was down there for Star Wars Celebration, and I was at Disney World at Hollywood Studios with my brother Sean, and with a friend of the show, Chris McGuffin. He was there. And guess who got selected to be a participant of the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular?
You?
Me! I was really, really hungover. Okay? And they were blowing off.
What are they
I was because I was on vacation, and I just remember basically pushing through it, and I made a lot of noise to get selected, and I remember being on stage with everything going on, going, I'm really, really hungover. But I had a smile on my face. Okay. Oh, God. Hey, Randall, have you ever been to Disney World?
I have not been to any Disney property.
Oh, man.
Aw.
I need you to go with me to Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar, okay? We can do like a 3-day down to Orlando and back again. You may be great. What do you think?
Well, assuming there's a vaccine someday,
No kidding.
one hopes that will be possible.
Yeah, let's stay positive. Okay. I haven't been to Tokyo Disney Sea. I've heard it's the best Disney park ever because it's only half owned by Disney. The other one is owned by the Oriental Land Company, and they put major money into it. And then there's a roller coaster ride called Indiana Jones et le Temple du Peril, as in Pearl, as in Jeopardy. That's in Paris at the Disneyland Park, which is different from Disney Studios in Paris. Yeah, it's kind of weird over there. They change their names with them all the time. Formerly Euro Disney, which they haven't used in 20 years. So,
Fun bit of trivia: the Indiana Jones ride in Disneyland is actually copied in Animal Kingdom for the dinosaur ride. It's the exact same track and drive system. They just, instead of Indiana Jones, it's dinosaurs.
Nice.
Yeah. Wow. Guys, I hate to say this, but yeah, we should close our doors fairly soon because we have some scheduling stuff going on. But any last points you guys want to make?
No, I think we've pretty much covered a lot of it.
We didn't
If you
have
have
time.
to- Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Derek.
Randall.
I'm going to say, if you have to go to an archaeological dig with any fictional archaeologist, who's picking Indy? Who's picking Lara Croft?
Oh, God.
I'm going to go with Daniel Jackson. Thanks.
Oh, fair.
Yeah.
Oh, talking about other franchises, right? Look at how many ripoffs from Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones basically, not created, but kickstarted this entire archaeology adventure genre. If you look at that, Ellen Cornerman and the Lost City of Gold, Firewalker,
But before that, King Solomon's Mines.
King Solomon's Mine, right? Okay,
That's the that's the first Alan Ford made movie.
right. Yeah, based off the book, right? So then there's Firewalker. There's the Remains in the Stones franchise, which my mom dearly loved. Yeah, I don't know why. The Mummy franchise, you see aspects of Indiana Jones in that. Tomb Raider, yeah, both of them, yeah, same thing. There was a TV show in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, called Relic Hunter, which lasted a couple of seasons. That was filmed in Toronto. It's all about a woman archaeologist having adventures, taking and finding artifacts. But even like National Treasure franchise, right? It's the whole, that's more conspiracy related, but it's there. And I can't wait to see Jungle Cruise, see how much Jungle Cruise, the movie, has been influenced by Indiana Jones, as opposed to the ride, because, of course, the ride predates Indiana Jones by 25 years. So,
We didn't have time to discuss the TV show Young Indiana Jones. I'll just briefly say, for some reason, I actually didn't watch it when it came out. I don't know why. And I caught up with most of them on Netflix and stuff. And I don't know, like the World War I episodes were pretty good, but the ones where there was no real action, they just didn't hold my interest.
You can watch them on YouTube, because I've been watching them. And, yeah, I know what they were going for. They're trying to go for a young audience and give them imagination. So there's lots of historical characters the young Indian runs into. So every episode, he runs into 2 historical characters. But the pacing's awful.
Yeah, they're so slow.
So, Randall, any last thoughts from your side?
No, but I do have to get going. It's my wife's birthday, and our socially distanced guests have arrived, so I'm going to have to take off. But I do thank you guys for having me here. I enjoyed the indie films. I definitely enjoyed recording this podcast more than I enjoyed watching Crystal Skull. Probably somewhere in the same ballpark of Temple of Doom and recording the show, same level of enjoyment. It's very high. So thank you very much for having me, and you guys have a great rest of the show. I know you're wrapping up, but it has been a pleasure as always.
Yes, and buy Randall's book, Before Life, and pre-order Afterlife, his new book, which is out September, what date?
Afterlife Crisis comes out September 8th.
September 8th. And Randall, what's your Twitter address?
@Randall_Graham.
Thank you, sir. You are a great addition to the show. As always, have a great day and spend some quality time with your wife and your loved ones.
Will do. Thanks so much. Bye,
Take
guys.
care. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow, busy day. Busy day. People are busy. It's amazing. So, yeah, we can do so much more, but I think we talk about Indiana Jones a lot. We should do another episode if Indiana Jones 5 ever comes out.
Okay.
Yeah. And the question is, who wants to play Indiana Jones? I don't think Harrison Ford's going to do it. And quite honestly, I love Harrison Ford, but he's just too old for the role for me.
Yeah,
Well-
he's too old at this point.
Yeah. He doesn't do for me anymore, so I don't know. What do you guys think? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love
sure.
Harrison Ford, but he's just too old. I mean, is he actually going to be doing action scenes in this movie?
Yeah.
You know, it's like...
Yeah. Mind you, he probably will crash his plane before that, so but he has a...
Who knows?
which is done before. So
he actually just did that a few weeks ago. He taxied to the wrong runway, and he almost hit a plane that was landing or taking off.
yeah, it's like his third major violation or something
Yeah.
like that. It's just Oh, to be rich, to be Han Solo / Indiana Jones. All right, guys. I know one of us has another show to record, so we're going to end this one. So let's do our closing, which is, well, yes, this is our closing. This show, well, is released as a podcast and on YouTube, generally the next day for YouTube because it takes a while to render the video. Please subscribe today and check out our Discord server, which is a great place for news and commentary. We're also on social media. I do the Twitter and Instagram, and Derek does the Facebook. Derek, you're doing a great job on the Facebook, by the way.
Thank you.
Our email address is management@scifipubcast.space. Carrie, what's your Twitter address?
My Twitter handle is Carrie Blackfire42. That's KERI Blackfire42.
And what other podcasts do you host?
I am co-host on DC Talk, which is a DC Comics news and review show, and we just did our 100th episode last week or 2 weeks ago.
Congrats.
So that's exciting. And then also on the Cape Chronicles, which is a show where we go through all of the all superhero movies ever. We did our 50th episode a month ago where we talked about Dark Knight, and then because they were released in chronological order, we chased that unfortunately with Punisher Warzone.
Okay, sounds great. Check that out. And these shows are on what network?
On the Random Chatter Network.
Perfect. Derek, what's your Twitter address, my friend?
I'm at Derek J. Beebe.
Excellent. And I'm at Joel_Welch, WELCH. It's closing time. Please make it home and stay safe. And stay safe. And we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Music provided courtesy of Logan Rathbone. Podcast logo by Jea Rhea. Copyrighted Joe Welch. Listen responsibly. And we can't wait for your next visit to our fine establishment. Cheers.